All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And as you can see, I'm here live at San Diego Comic-Con. But even though we have San Diego Comic-Con, of course, we're going to have to get into some Secret Invasion. And I'm not going to be alone in talking about the goings-on of the penultimate episode, episode 5. So stay tuned for that. But of course, before we get into that, we're going to get into, a quick review, some spark notes, if you will, of what transpired in those episodes. So I want to, briefly get into 4 just as a quick excuse me, and then get into 5. All right. So let me switch this over, folks. We will access our recap. So previously on Secret Invasion, when we last left off, we were provided confirmation and further insight into, the in regards to Rhodey being a Skrull, and similarly, we provided further insight into Priscilla's, allegiances of her siding with Fury versus, her own people with the Skrulls. And after confrontation, I can talk to that. After a confrontation of sorts between Fury and Rhodey, Fury coyly is able to place, a track on Rhodey, which later allows him to thwart an attack on the U.S. president by Gravik and company. Unfortunately, it comes at the sacrifice of Talos's life. So in this week's episode titled Harvest, we're dealing with the aftermath of the attack as Fury opens the episode trying to secure the safety of the president. And however, Skrull Rhodey or Scrody is not far off his trail, and manages to isolate, the president away from Fury, and also is revealed that he's going to, drop that evidence, or I'll put it in quotation marks, his blackmail, we can say, against Fury, in making it seem like, he attacked or shot Maria Hill. Let's see. Later on, we also get we're provided the idea that not all is well on Team Gravik, as his team is steadily turning, against him as they question, his merciless and ruthless methods to take over Earth, methods which seem to perfectly be content in, sacrificing the Skrulls as collateral damage for the sake of securing Earth as a new Skrull home. We see examples of this when he eliminates, his right-hand man, pretty viciously, and then also in his goal, and also taking out Priscilla for not, following that order of getting rid of Fury. Lucky for Priscilla, though she is quite capable, it's demonstrated that she's quite capable of taking care of herself. She gets some support from Guy, who we could say pays it, forward to her for helping her to properly pay respects to her late father, which, as I said, passed away or was killed in the prior episode. And elsewhere, we have Sonya Fallsworth, who has to take matters, into her own hands, on her grounds, because she's basically smoking out those said Skrulls that are within, her ranks. And in that process, she's able to track down the scientists who, many folks believe are humans, but they, as we well know, they have been replaced by Skrulls, those folks that are responsible for creating the Super Skrull device or machine. And in this process, it allows us to come full circle as both Fury and that character, they're able to, meet up and track down what we finally learn is the end game for Gravik, which is trying to secure apparently this DNA of the Avengers that have been, collected. For what reasons we don't know. We assume, based if we're talking about Fury, it could be for some nefarious means. I mean, I'm sure he had his own reasons at the time, but uh, it also closes with him securing, all of his iconic, iconography with his, his eye patch and his, his leather, jacket. And that's where we close, where, he's about to make his final, stand against Gravik. So, as I said, guys, I'm not going to be alone in talking about the goings on of this episode. So I'm going to introduce each of my guest hosts. First up, they've been on the show before, so it's cool to have them back. They're also provide their talents, with their voice on a lot of, audio work. It's my pleasure to welcome back on the show Matt Nesalonic. Let me bring him on. Matt, what's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Love it. Hey, what's up? Okay, all right. So next up, and this is a reunion of sorts because I've had the next guest on here along with Matt to talk The Expanse. So you just saw him just a moment ago in talking about what happened with Strange New World. So it is my pleasure to welcome back on this show as well, Michael P.
Hey guys.
You never have enough,
right.
Michael.
There you go. Never can have enough. So, guys, as I said, there's a lot that went down in this episode. But just initial impressions. I have my thoughts, but I want to punt it over to you guys of how you felt about the episode. I have some strong feelings based in relation to the other ones that we saw, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts are first.
Michael?
Oh, okay.
Whoever.
Well, Nick has too many things going. If he'd never collected those samples in the first place, we wouldn't be here. And that was one of the lines, I think, that, the character that Olivia Colman plays.
Sonia, yeah.
Sonia. And come on, she's playing the...
She is awesome.
She's playing
I
the
love
shit
her.
out of that. Okay, she's playing the hell out of that role. But she's right, though. Nick has created this problem. Now, having said that, what they could have done is they could have destroyed all those blood samples and all this, because that would have been the smart thing to do, so they couldn't fall into the wrong hands. But again, Nick reminds me of Batman. Remember how Batman always had a contingency plan in case the superheroes went bad? He always had a plan to take them out. And I suspect to a certain extent that's what Nick was planning to do too, just in case, they went bad.
I feel like a lot of this show, it just hinges on really dumb decisions. Again, if Fury didn't do that, if Fury, when things were going bad, just destroyed the samples. If the part in the hospital with Rhodey, when they had, 20 Secret Service guys with their guns on Fury, why didn't they just shoot him? It would have been done.
So, okay. So I have so many thoughts on this episode where, like, just in terms of, like, the pace that you would have with a show. And I can't believe I'm saying this about, this, just in general with the Marvel shows, because I feel like there have been times where, like, it's been an episode too long. But there have been instances of the same problem, too, where I feel like it needs to maybe have been 8 episodes where a lot of the things that they seem to be trying to accomplish in this episode, it felt very rushed and it didn't feel natural. Where, like, you do get a slight progression of what's happening with the Skrulls, of them slowly starting to distrust Gravik, but, like, that drastic turn of him just like I said, just taking out, like, his right hand dude, like that. It just seemed like so sudden. It seemed like something where we still needed more development with that to get to that point. And it just seemed like completely out of left field. Like, that's like your guy. Like, he's been loyal to you, like, even when others haven't been loyal to you.
But also, as soon as that scene started, it was telegraphed exactly what was going to happen as soon as he spoke up.
Yeah,
oh, come on. It's not earned. It's not earned at all.
That's what I'm getting at. It's not earned at all, where a lot of times when we're talking about pacing of a show, you want to build to that point where, like, you're anticipating that something might go down versus it just seeming like, okay, because you guys have 6 episodes, like we have to get to from point A to point B, regardless of everything that's happened before. Because another reason why I bring that up too, how did Guy get Talos's body? Like the body was left among like the security of the president. That is a secure location. How did they get the body? The body was left there. That was bothering me. I was like, how did they?
Someone just walked in, body delivery. Hold on.
Right,
and just walked out with it.
And on top of that, he's an alien.
She grew limbs. She grew the limbs and reached over the fence and pulled it out. That's what she did.
You know, this show needs like the little at the bottom of the screen. 3 weeks later, something like that, just to show that there is some time passing here. I'm not okay. So just since this is my first episode talking to you guys about this, I am not liking this series. I am trying to like it. I'm still watching it. I am not enjoying it though. So
it goes back to why you should be paying the writers more money, because you know what? It all goes back to the writing. You know, it's just, and if they try to, sleaze it and, save money here, 6 episodes. But if the writers aren't up to it, because they're trying to write and they're like, well, they're getting notes that say, well, no, kill them off, or notes this, and the writers go like, but no, and they don't. You can just tell when studios put their fingers into it because it makes no sense, and when the writers are let to do what they need to do, then it makes sense. So I would say I all these things are all legitimate, which is unfortunate, because there are moments when they act, when some of the writing is so good, like the initial confrontation between Nick Fury and Rhodey.
Yeah,
that was some seriously good writing. I mean, that quality of writing is what we needed through the whole show. But they had to get from point A to point B, and well, the problem is we needed point A, point B, point C, point D, point E, and F, and they just went, oh no, we're going to go to Z. It's like what the blank over. But,
and I mean, to jump off of what you were saying, Michael, like I will give credit where credit is due. We've had some incredible scenes, and I would say it's not just a combination of writing, but it's a kudos to the cast that they have that are able to elevate it a lot of times when they haven't had a lot to work with. But throughout this series, we've had instances where we've had like duos. I like to call it duos, where we have 2 characters across from each other, having a scene in which they are like
2-person scenes.
Yeah. We have a lot of that throughout the series, but to the credit of not just the writing but also the actors, like they work. Like those are like some of my favorite moments from the show. Like if we have moments between Fury and Talos, those are great. The moments that we have between between Gravik and Talos, great.
Ben Mendelsohn is a hell of a good actor, and I think he was kind of wasted in some of this. Like, I don't think they let him go as far as he could have.
Well, but that's the whole point, though. You have the talent is there.
Yes.
So you can't blame the talent or even the direction. Again, the writing, when they let the writers do their writing, that some of that dialogue was just, I mean, it was riveting. You were just sitting there going like, oh yeah, just like go ahead on, just tell them what I mean, we're almost yelling. I was at another convention, and Giancarlo Esposito was there, and he gave a brilliant speech, a brilliant talk, and people literally were yelling, "Preach!" I mean, I'm not lying. We had people on this side, over there, yelling, "Preach, preach, preach!" Right?
I believe it.
So when you heard the great dialogue, you were like, "Yeah, testify, brother. Just testify. Go." It's like you're knocking on the wood and stuff. And the writing is just there, and they had the ability to carry it off. But then, you go to the action stuff, you go like, what? It's like when the stormtroopers couldn't shoot straight. Okay. Yeah. That's how bad it got at points, right?
And that's what I feel about this show that I'm not liking. The action feels cheap in this show. Like, exposition, good 2-person scene, and then some generic action. And I'm not feeling it.
I hear you. And okay. So like I've enjoyed, like I was mentioning, I've enjoyed the duos, and I've enjoyed the aesthetic that they're going for. They're trying to go very like Winter Soldier. Clearly, it seems to be what their inspiration has been.
Well, it's a spy thriller. a spy thriller from like the 50s and 60s, the Cold War era style.
Yeah. And so, like, I've enjoyed, that choice because another thing that I give Marvel credit for is throughout the time that they've had the MCU, in terms of trying to find ways to make things seem fresh, is they'll try to borrow genre tropes for specific franchises. If we're talking Guardians of the Galaxy, we're talking about a space opera, or if we're talking about the Captain America franchise, it's the espionage and the thriller that we have there, and then Doctor Strange more into the macabre or horror,
mystical
tropes.
horror,
yeah. So, like, I appreciate that it's all there, but it just felt like, because it's truncated into a 6-part story, that it needs like I said, in general, it needs a couple of more episodes to kind of breathe, to have that like whole arc make sense.
I don't often say that, but maybe this series would have been better as a movie. I think, if they had the right writers for it, because you look at Winter Soldier, you had a nice story there, fully, 2 hours of story, good action scenes, and it just worked. This just, I don't know, maybe this would have been better as a 2-hour movie.
I mean, I'll do some research on it, but from what I understand, I had heard around and doing this episode that was actually the plan, is to what they were doing with the Marvels, or say the Captain Marvel sequel, was to adapt Secret Invasion. But my thing with that is, I understand why they didn't do that, because if we're picturing, even though that we've been introduced to the Skrulls in the MCU via that franchise, Carol is so OP that, like, it's hard to really foresee how that would work, of having her, go up against the Skrulls. I mean, it worked to a degree in the first film because she, was still kind of finding her way in terms of her abilities, and she found it by the end. But
it's the problem they run with a lot of the Superman movies. How do you fight something that powerful?
Yeah, or the Hulk. Like, that's why Hulk movies, they have so much trouble, because he's so OP. So I understand what they were trying to go for, with this this series, and I applaud them for what the intention was. But like, just by virtue of what they're trying to accomplish in a 6-part story, I felt a drastic shift from episode 4 to 5, where I felt like the first 4 episodes were steadily building along, and then like we just like went from 0 to like 100.
It's like season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Well, it's like when Nick Fury got on that private jet, it's like, what? It's just like, okay, you can get on a private jet, but it just seemed incongruous, okay, with the fact that he's trying to run and hide, and then he just gets on a private jet someplace, and that nobody knows about it, but him. It just seemed odd.
Question for you.
Yes.
Maybe you guys can point this out. So I've watched this episode twice now.
Yes.
The guy on the plane that gave him his fake identity.
Say again?
The guy on the plane that gave him his passport and fake identity.
Yeah.
Was that the guy in Black Widow that got them the helicopter?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure that out. I'm like, I know I've seen him before.
Yes. Yeah, it was. Okay. So it was like, a quick cameo to that. So that's actually a perfect segue. There weren't a whole bunch of Easter eggs or like callbacks. That was one of them. We got an instance of that, just by virtue of the title of this episode, of having Harvest, and what we were discussing with the DNA that I guess that was harvested during, the final battle. So were there any other ones that, that you, outside of those two? Those are 2 ones I caught that you guys, saw, and it was cool, or you enjoyed that they, threw it in there that come to mind? Maybe for you, Michael, I don't know.
Yeah, not really. That was the one that got me. It
wasn't that much. It was a short episode. So,
hey, go ahead, Michael. I was going to say, just to clarify, the file, is that all of the Avengers DNA, or is that Carol Danvers' DNA?
It's all the Avengers,
Because
allegedly. Yeah.
Okay, because I know they made a point of saying even Carol Danvers' DNA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if that was just hers or all of
No,
them mixed.
no, like everybody. Because I mean, if we're picturing that last battle, everyone, just like he was saying, shed blood in some type of way.
Yeah.
So during that battle, so I'm sure it was on the battlefield somewhere of all of the all of their DNA. So never thought I'd say that in a sentence, but anyway, sorry, too soon. Anyway, all right. Wow, that went sideways. Anyway, but no, so those are the only ones that came to mind for me. So it's nothing really much else that I can go into that. But if we're getting into like what ifs or theories, what are some things that come to mind that you foresee? Because like I had a theory, and this is from last week, that I didn't anticipate would actually that is important. I thought that would actually be right, and it ended up not being correct. Was I thought that we would get a clear picture of when Rhodey was switched, because in every single episode we've had like we've had a cold open, right? But we've either had a flashback, or we've just had just a natural cold open of like a continuance of the prior episode.
Well, does this mean Rhodey's dead? Or is
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I think he still got switched, but I'm saying I thought that they would open this episode with us seeing when that happened. Like maybe it happened after Civil War when he got injured, like when he was being on the gurney and he was being taken off to be hospitalized. Maybe within that period of time he got switched out. I know a lot of people have been saying, some other people have been saying that maybe it happened as kind of like a meta thing with, Terrence Howard and all of that. But I was like, my only issue with that is, while it's cool to be able to use this element with the scrolls and trying to figure out, man, when did they get switched and how long have they been a scroll? A lot of audience members, myself included, would feel very cheated if they have been a scroll this entire time with, developmental things that their character has done.
Well, that's right. The Skrulls have been here on Earth since the 80s.
They have.
So it could have been the entire time.
He could have been, but I don't know about you. I would feel really cheated.
Yes.
Out of that character and everything he's done so far.
Well, remember when he was injured? In Civil War? And then he came back with that exoskeleton kind of walking thing too, and so now we don't have him in that exoskeleton walking thing anymore, and so I don't know when he got better, but and then in Tony Stark, he has a suit. So this is my question, Tony Stark is Tony Stark. If he knew about the scrolls, you would think that he would have something to that would test the blood. To make before the machine would operate, just as a thought. I mean, I'm just throwing this out as an idea. I don't know if it means anything.
I would love to see a blood testing scene like from The Thing. Where he goes and tests each blood as they're strapped to a couch.
That's fair.
Never mind.
That's fair.
Just put a little horror element in there.
Well, the pod people, right? They're like the pod people to a certain extent. But you're saying, what's going to happen in the next episode? We see Fury going into battle. We did need more information. It would have been a great, as you said, not a cold, a retro thing where we actually found out when Rhodey changed over.
Yeah,
that would have been that could have been honestly that could have been an episode by itself.
Yeah.
And the Fury could have been in it, but unaware of what was going on.
It would be nice if they were saving that as the cold episode or cold open for the final episode, because whoever this Rhodey is going to die in this episode. So they show us being switched at some point. That would be nice.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was picturing we were going to get this week, is that we would have that cold open, right, of knowing when he got switched. And like, just like we've had in every single episode, it seems like with this series, like there's a certain character that is their episode. Mm-hmm. So like this would have been Rhodey's episode, where like by the end of the episode, just like you said, he would have, been killed or gotten done away with, because if we're talking video game talk, right, he is the semi boss before you get to the big boss.
He's
so
the
you have to take
mid boss.
the big out. Yeah, he's the mini boss before you have to get to Gravik. So like naturally, a lot of times right before you get to the very end, you have to take care of that mini boss first before you get to the big bad. So like that's what I thought we were gonna get for this episode. So it's going to be kind of weird on how it's going to work in this episode. They have a lot of stuff to wrap up, even in spite of how much stuff seemed to be rushed in this episode.
I also, like, for one of my theories, I'd like to see, what's her name, Sonya, actually be a Skrull.
Really?
That would be a Skrull?
Sonya.
That would be a fun change.
That would be crazy.
But you know what? I thought she was a Skrull. That when he went to get the vial, I thought that she would reveal herself as a Skrull and then she would grab it at that point.
But I think she could be a good one that's working, like, actually trying to work with Earth, though.
Huh.
Just a theory. It's got nothing based off of nothing.
I like it.
I would like to see that.
No, because that would really turn things on its head of like everything that we've seen her do. But I mean, we're talking about espionage, right? So like people play, are playing so many different sides and playing so many different angles. So like that would be interesting.
Good one, yeah.
For sure. Do you guys have any like theories of what may happen with Guy's character now that we have her as a Super Skrull essentially? So because now we basically have two Super Skrulls.
Well, that I don't know what's going on with that. Number one, it was obvious when she was shot before that she was a Super Skrull. Then, I mean, that was so. I mean, come on, people. People are going like, "Well, is she alive?" Of course she's alive, and she's a Super Skrull, and the bullet didn't kill her. So duh. So, but the question is, what role is she going to play going forward? And then with the Marvels, we know that Fury was on the space station. So is in the Marvels, does it occur after?
I believe it does occur after Secret Invasion. So all of this is already transpired by the time we get to Secret Invasion.
Well, then if that's the case, then we know Fury's not going to die.
Right.
Yeah.
But if Fury's a Skrull, he might die. That Skrull that pretend to be Fury might die, because that's what Talos did before, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I kind of wonder.
Or the Fury happen in the next movie is a Skrull in the movie.
Somebody's a Skrull.
So who knows if they're all Skrulls.
Yeah, I mean, I know one thing that has been brought up is maybe kind of going with what you were saying, Matt. Is I think we were talking about this the first episode. Is that maybe Fury is in fact like a decoy also. So like maybe because he didn't really trust, what was going on, he sent a pawn, so to speak. Because even like in the comics, he has all these like decoys, like even like robotic decoys. So like maybe they're kind of playing with that same trope or that same concept by having him kind of do reconnaissance back up on, his station while he sends someone down to be him. Because like he's kind of been acting kind of strange too as well.
I feel like he's just been acting tired the entire series.
Yeah.
Like, we get it. He's older, but he just seems tired in the show.
Kind of over. It was a little bit much. It was a little overboard.
Yeah.
It seemed like they were really trying to hammer home, like,
he's old.
Oh my gosh,
down.
a little still and a little like, not at his best. He's not at his peak, so to speak. I think one of the characters, Sonya, was mentioning that. So.
Yeah, he was hobbled or something like that in the first episode or two.
Yeah. So.
I think it takes a lot of the weight of the show away if there's going to be a Fury in the next movie coming out.
Yeah. And I mean, that is a challenge when we're talking about the MCU. We know so much is connected together, that there are certain things that are constants that you can't really work your way around.
Although now it could be a Fury from a different universe.
It could be.
We have multiverse now, so
that's what I'm saying. That's the problem too. So like I'll mention it again since we're running towards the end of this series is. Other than the Skrulls, this whole multiverse thing, I just hope that going forward, as we kind of like come to a close with this saga, the multiverse saga, that we come to a healthy medium of how they utilize scrolls and how they utilize the multiverse for the remaining films that are a part of it, because it can be severely abused.
Yes.
And done too much, where it's going to become ridiculous, and people are just going to be frustrated because they're not going to really be able to follow it if they're thinking, oh, okay, this is a variant from this universe, because now like
nothing matters if you can just be like, oh, that was a different Fury.
Right, but I'm saying, even as a reason why I bring it up, even as if we're talking, the recent Doctor Strange movie, we now have to keep up with universe numbers.
Yes.
Why?
I mean, in the comic books, that's okay because it's easier in the comic books. It's easier on like the Flash TV show.
Yeah.
But this is too much.
It's too much. So yeah, hopefully, going forward, and I know that, as we were getting into a lot of these, Disney Plus shows, that it was an experiment of sorts, just like, the beginning of phase 1, where, there were some growing pains and things that had to be adjusted as they went along. So now that we're like further into a lot of these series, and from what I understand, we're going to get fewer projects, so that way there can be more of a focus on quality over quantity.
Right, that's very needed.
Yeah. Hopefully, with all of those things in mind, we're able to get back to what we've come to know and expect when it comes to Marvel. So
yeah, agreed.
But with that being said, though, I think that's a good time to wrap it up. But whichever one of you want to hop on first, if you want to, tell folks where they can find you. I tell you what, I'll pass it off to Michael. You want to go first? Or
okay,
Matt?
yeah. This again, Michael P., senior writer at Friends of Comic Con, and I use the nom de plume of Mickle P, MICLPEA. Okay, and you can just catch a lot of reviews over there and some of the things we're talking about here. And so I invite you all to come over to our forum.
Cool. Matt?
All right. I have a Twitter account. I'm not much on Twitter anymore, though. So you can find me. I'm over on Audible, Matthew Naslanic. I do audiobooks. So, if you want to hear this voice over there, that's where you find
And what's your handle on Twitter, Matt?
I don't have a Twitter account anymore. I don't talk about that. Go ahead and read it, Brandon. You want to. Go ahead.
No, you're good, man. Everyone can see it there. So with that being said, it's best with you, man. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on Twitter and Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. With that being said, I want to thank, my two co-hosts, guest co-hosts, Michael, as well as Matt, of course. Keep it locked, because next week we will be talking the last episode of Secret Invasion, and we also have, believe it or not, because we didn't have a chance to do it yesterday, we also have a This Week in Review to follow this show. We got more for you. So make sure you keep a lock here. But thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see you soon. Bye.